I may have mentioned once or twice about how Paul is the absolute worst. Now, let's see if there's any scenario where Paul works. Any universe where this terrible character could possibly function properly. Well, I see a few changes which need to be made where I think he could work mildly. Paul has the characterization as flat as a sheet of paper. He exists solely to be the perfect boyfriend for Mary Jane. The first change I would make is to simply do what the comic did. Get rid of his kids. These kids are not some next level in a relationship or have their own fleshed out characterizations that justify why they should even exist. They exist solely as a pair of handcuffs. They are a means of saying, hey, MJ and Paul are a couple, and we as the authors and editors have solidified this by making them adopt these kids together. No take backsies with Peter. There is something inherently off about the idea of simply using children as props in order to say couples are unbreakable because of it, especially in light of how many parents who did separate or divorce in the real world after having kids. Children aren't binding contracts, nor should they be treated as pawns in a divorce and forced to choose sides. But in a better written story, these kids would be interesting drama for MJ since she is their mother and at the same time she loves Peter. How would the kids feel about Peter? Would they blame him for destroying their family? This could be good opportunity for drama. But instead, they died as they lived. Keeping these kids didn't add anything to the story. Removing them was met with fanfare. Okay, so what if I didn't want to deal with the kids at all? Maybe they just didn't simply exist, which is exactly what I want. The next issue I have with Paul is his whole backstory. I hate the backstory. It tries so hard to make Paul heroic when he does not come off as heroic in the slightest. He causes the world to be destroyed. He causes his world to be destroyed. He heroically saves MJ by trying to kill Peter and destroy a large city with it. For this alteration, I would say dump this backstory and make a completely new one. One that is really boring. Basically, turn him into Larry from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Why Larry? Why this normal salaryman? Because this relationship isn't going to be about Paul versus Peter. It's going to be about the rocky relationship between Peter and MJ. Why would MJ settle for this normal guy who is overworked and underpaid? Because Peter is also overworked and underpaid. Only he has work split between superheroism and real world work. MJ would settle for a completely normal guy because, well, he is normal. It's a very human thing to desire stability and normality. And can your love manage against the pain and suffering that comes with being a superhero? Could it ever manage that? I mean, being in love with a superhero is just a health hazard waiting to happen. Gwen Stacy died because Norman Osborn threw her off a bridge. In fact, MJ carried a gun at one point and shot Norman to defend Peter, because Norman, I think, wanted to throw her off a bridge as well. And given how much of One More Day she remembers, well, the story frames that she remembers, but I'm not sure if she does, she probably did remember why her husband traded away his marriage to save his aunt. There's a joke about how being self-pitying and believing yourself to be uniquely unforgivable and in your own suffering ends up becoming an ironic sort of pride. The monk walks into adoration and says, "O Lord, I am unworthy." The convert walks into adoration and says, "O Lord, I am unworthy." The alcoholic walks into adoration and says, "O Lord, I am unworthy." The monk and the convert say behind the alcoholic's back, "Who does this guy think he is to be on my level of unworthiness?" It would be far more interesting to see that MJ had to give up her love of Peter to prevent him from being more self-destructive, as he kept piling on more responsibility out of his guilt/pride complex rather than anything else, to the point that it's actually straining the relationship. She also would look inward and see how much of her actions are driven by her desire for stability. Generally, the question is how much does it take to turn a happy couple into one that becomes mutually self-destructive? In other words, my fundamental solution to Paul is to literally turn him into a background character. Hey, what can I do? The guy has zero personality to go off with other than being whatever the narrative wants him to be, and the whole destroying his own world bit is really hard to reconcile with, hey, he's a really great guy who takes responsibility for his actions. No, no, he doesn't. So basically, having him just be in the background while Mary Jane and Peter's relationship is in the focus is probably for the best. It says a lot about how much I dislike this character when the best I can do for him is imagine him as a background character and a prop in Mary Jane's supporting cast rather than just this guy behind the chair building the inventions for Mary Jane's escapades as Jackpot, which are just stupid. She dresses like a clown and acts like a clown. I could go on about Jackpot, but honestly, this era of Spider-Man is terrible enough, and I'm done talking about Paul. Those are just my thoughts on the matter. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.